What's up, guys? In today's video, we're going to talk about the importance of meal timing. I was asked this question the other day via DMs, and I wanted to make a video on it because I feel like it is an important subject when it comes to not only weight loss but also performance. So I wanted to go over the importance of meal timing, and is meal timing necessarily important in regards to performance and weight loss. So let's start with weight loss first, because I feel like a lot of people think about meal timing when it comes to weight loss first, because we have things out there like intermittent fasting that people think that, okay, well, maybe if I only eat within a certain time that I could lose a particular amount of weight or things of that nature. So in regards to meal timing for weight loss, now, yes, maybe your body might be a little bit more primed for food if you're in like a fasted state. So let's say like if you do fast for 16 hours and then you eat for 8 hours, it might be able to absorb that first meal a little bit better just because you've been in a fasted state for so long. But then after that, it's really not going to have that much of an effect. So in regards to like meal timing for weight loss, if you space your food out, at an appropriate amount, so let's say anywhere from 3 to 5 hours that you're spacing your meals out, that way you could, not only keep yourself sustained and keep yourself fueled throughout the day, that way you could eat, you don't throughout the entire day. You don't have to fast for a particular amount of time. If you hold everything steady, so if you hold like your training steady, if you hold your cardio steady, and you just eat the same amount of food over the course of a day, if your macros are going to be roughly the same, your overall weight loss is going to be, once again, relatively the same in regards to like timing out your meals, no matter how far apart you eat them. Now, I wouldn't say that you should be eating your meals, back to back to back, let's say like an hour and a half to 2 hours apart necessarily, because you might run out of food depending on how much you're consuming on a daily basis. So let's say if you're eating 1,500 calories, if you're at the very, very end of a contest prep and you're a woman, you don't want to be eating all your meals back to back to back, because then you're going to run out of room at the end of the day. But let's circle back to meal timing for performance-based. So in regards to performance-based, there is a little bit of a science behind it. And not only from performance-based, but also from muscle building. So we'll start with muscle building because I feel like that's an important one to hit. So for anyone who knows, how we tear down our muscle when we are at the gym. We're not necessarily building new muscle when we're at the gym. We repair our muscle afterwards by spiking protein synthesis by consuming things that are heavy in protein. So things like whey protein, chicken, beef, fish. Whatever that you're eating, Greek yogurt is high in protein. And it breaks down, into the amino acids, and that's how it repairs our cells. So we need to constantly be repairing our cells in order for it to grow. Now, this is where the meal timing aspect does come into play. And people, do say that, okay, well, maybe you can't, digest all your protein in one sitting throughout the course of the day. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that somebody takes in their full day's worth of protein in one meal. Your body still will use it, but it just might not be as effective for protein synthesis. So think about it this way. Would you rather have, if you're eating like 2 meals a day, would you rather have 2 protein spikes or eating the same amount of protein, all things considered? So let's say you have 100 grams of protein in each meal. Would you rather eat it like that, or would you rather have 4 protein spikes a day, eating 50 grams of protein per meal, so 50, 50, 50, 50. If you have 4 protein spikes versus 2, that's twice the amount of chances in order to repair your cells. So that's where meal timing can come into play a little bit. Like I said earlier in this video, roughly between 3 and 5 hours, I'd like to see a protein spiked meal to help repair muscle cell. Now, if you're in an off season and you're in a caloric surplus, it might not be as important as if you're in a contest prep, if you're in a caloric deficit. Because obviously when we're in an extended off season, we're in a surplus phase, muscle repair comes a lot easier because of just the sheer caloric surplus that someone is in. But in a contest prep, like I said, it's a little bit more important. Now let's get more towards meal timing when it comes to the sheer performance aspect. So if we look, we already know the protein, we need to space it out accordingly so we could have spikes in protein synthesis to repair muscles. Now, we need to fuel our bodies for performance. So what are we fueling our bodies with? Most of us out there are probably using carbohydrates as our main fuel source. Those people that do keto, obviously theirs is the fat source, but most of the people out there that are athletes are using carbohydrates as their main fuel source. So when it comes to meal timing, and this is where it can get a little bit tricky as far as your pre-workout meal goes, because this goes down to the individual basis. Some people, like myself, for example, don't like to train with a lot of food in their stomach. So I actually wait 2 hours after I eat to train. Some people eat like 30 minutes to an hour before they train and they feel fine. Me, on the other hand, I just feel a lot of discomfort if I eat too close to my training session. Some people, on the other hand, also can push it even further past 2 hours. They're 2+ to 3 hours. I would always make sure that you don't necessarily push it past 3 hours though, just because we can have a decrease in the blood sugar, just because you might process all that food depending on the size of that meal. So I would say somewhere around the 2 hour mark is always a good window to go off of. You could try to go a little bit under, you could try to go a little bit over to see how your digestion is. Obviously, in the meal timing, you want to make sure that if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates beforehand, you leave yourself enough time to digest those. Now, like I said, I don't like to have a lot of food just sitting in my stomach, so I give myself about 2 hours. Now, if we flip it to the other hand, as far as meal timing when it comes to post-workout nutrition, because this is really where it comes into play when people talk about meal timing, they focus on pre-workout and post-workout. Now, once again, if you are in an extended off season and you're in a caloric surplus, you may not need to get your body fueled right away with some kind of a food source directly afterwards, because your body will sustain itself. It's not going to deteriorate. But if you're in a contest prep, if you're in an extended deficit, then on the other hand, you might want to get something in your system a little bit sooner rather than later. Along the same lines, depending on how far you ate before you worked out, so let's say you eat 3 hours beforehand. By the time you're done working out, it might be 5 hours since you've eaten. So you're going to want to get something in pretty close. But if you've only eaten like 30 minutes to an hour pre-training, then you don't need to eat directly after your training because you just ate a meal, an hour or two before that. So really, you don't need to push your food directly after your workout. So let's say, you're someone like myself who eats roughly 2 hours. I'll just tell you guys what I do to kind of help paint a picture. So I eat 2 hours before, I train for roughly 2 hours, so that's 4 hours that I'm not really consuming anything. I mean, I do take in intra-workout BCAAs, but that's it. Post-workout, since it is for a 4-hour window, I do have a protein shake directly afterwards with some carbohydrate sources, just to kind of help spike protein synthesis a little bit more and have that carryover effect to amplify protein synthesis to repair. Now, those carbohydrates aren't necessary for protein synthesis because protein alone will spike protein synthesis. It's when there are the source of a little bit of carbohydrates that it amplifies it ever so slightly. So I drink a protein shake afterwards, which is at the 4-hour mark, and then I wait an entire hour before I actually have a whole food meal. So really, from the time that I eat, which is 2 hours before, I train for 2 hours, which is 4 hours, I drink a protein shake, and then I wait another hour. That's 5 hours between meal to meal. Like I said earlier in this video, roughly 3 to 5 hours between any meals, and that's the longest that I go without eating a protein sourced meal. Now that shake I do have afterwards, is an hour post-training. So yes, I will admit that my post-workout shake and my post-training meal are fairly close together. It's only an hour, but that post-training shake doesn't really have a lot to it. The main ingredients in there is just essentially whey protein and then some kind of fast digesting carbohydrate, some high glycemic carb like dextrose or cluster dextrin. And that it's going to process super quickly, and that's why I need to eat, fairly soon right after that meal. So when it comes to post-workout nutrition, when it comes to meal timing in general, there's always going to be some kind of window that you can, use. So you have to look at your own particular schedule. You have to look at your own training schedule and see, okay, where can I fit my meals in? And I think a lot of people, and this is how I used to be. When I was just getting into bodybuilding, I remember, watching my pretend watch here, and I would say like, oh man, I need to eat every 2 hours on the hour. And I thought like if I went off by a minute or 5 minutes that I was gonna like lose all my gains. When in reality, that's not true. If you're fueling your body appropriately, if you are giving yourself enough protein spikes throughout the course of the day to fuel protein synthesis, then you're going to be totally fine. At the end of the day, calories are going to be king. Yes, they can be spread out appropriately to help with performance, to help refuel your body with glycogen. But there's not necessarily a true, end-all, be-all time that you have to eat a particular meal. Like I said even before earlier, with the pre-training meal, people can go from 30 minutes before to 3 hours before. That just goes to show you, obviously you're not going to be eating the same size meal 30 minutes before as opposed to 3 hours before. So to sum up this video very briefly, just to kind of close it out here, you're going to eat a larger meal, let's say like 3 hours before, but you're going to eat a much smaller meal 30 minutes before. And that way you don't have a ton of food in your stomach, pulling blood from your body, helping you digest that food, because you want that blood to go to the muscles. So that's where like the post-workout and pre-workout meals do come into play with slight meal timing. Any other case, just try to space your protein roughly evenly throughout the day. Don't really look too much into it. You don't have to time it out to the exact minute, not even to the hour. As long as you're getting those protein spikes in, you're going to be repairing your cells. You're going to be totally fine. So that's it for today's video, guys, about meal timing. Let me know what you guys do for your meal timing. How long do you space your meals out throughout the course of the day? Is it every 2 hours like I used to be, or is it every roughly 3 to 4 to 5 hours like I do now? All right, guys, as always, keep dominating every aspect. I'll see you soon.